I was Hurney Rico from Street Scores, and breaking news: the Washington Commanders reportedly will not pick up defensive end Chase Young's fifth-year option. There are so many things that's chaotic about this. First of all, does that mean that they're choosing between Chase Young or Montez Sweat? They're literally fighting for one contract. Also, the fact that we technically have no defensive end on contract beyond this 2023 season now, except for Shaka Toney, who's suspended indefinitely for a minimum of a year. Also, does this mean we should trade Chase Young, especially before or during the draft? What value could we even get for a guy? At this point, you'd be selling low. So what could we even potentially get? So we're going to take a look at some trade scenarios. Does this also open up the possibility of us taking defensive end round one if one of the more talented guys slides to us? Or maybe we'll take defensive end edge rushers sooner than we expect. Like maybe originally we were just going to wait till like the 5th, 6th, 7th round. Maybe we'll take one of the more talented guys in the 3rd round. Also, man, if Chase Young's going to end up being a 2024 free agent along with Montez Sweat, there are a lot of other names, including Cameron Curl and Curtis Samuel, who we'll have to worry about paying in this offseason as well. So I'm going to give my opinions on the whole thing and why I feel like we might as well have just given him the 5th-year option and things like that. How much would it cost us versus how much he could potentially cost us if he balls out, if we don't end up trading him. So there's so many things to look at. So there's so many angles to look at this, and I'm gonna try to dive into every single one of them. But before we do, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell next to the subscription button so you get notification immediately, and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you pull up for all of the draft coverage. I'm live streaming Thursday, Friday, and Saturday rounds 1 through 5. The draft doesn't start till 8 p.m. on Thursday, as in tomorrow, but I'll start live streaming 6:30, open up the phone lines for y'all to call in, to join in the show, to ask whatever question you may have or whatever. And we're going to probably be doing some mock drafts together and things like that. So, man, make sure y'all stay tuned. Pull up for everything. Again, Thursday all the way through Saturday, rounds 1 through 5 at the very least. All kinds of draft coverage, mock drafts, everything. And without further ado, let's get it. Alright, so Nikki Javala reported it first. The Commanders are not going to exercise defensive end Chase Young's 5th-year option per sources. Remember, he's a 2020 second overall pick. We took him instead of taking Justin Herbert, most notably, but Tua. I mean, there were so many players taken after him that have been balling out and have avoided major injuries like him. So it does look a little crazy, but there's still hope out there that Chase Young can be the guy. And I'm definitely going to dive into that when we get to the Montez Sweat versus Chase Young portion of this video. And I'm happy that if they're not going to do it, I still hope that they do it at some point. The deadline is May 2nd, so we have till after the draft to do it if they decide they want to. Maybe if we don't take an edge rusher in the 1st round or within the first 3 rounds, maybe they'll be more inclined to do it. I don't know. But either way, I'm happy that this news came out before the draft if they're truly not going to pick up that 5th-year option than after the draft, because if we would have waited until after the draft, it would have been all kinds of chaos. All of this would have been amplified. It's still breaking news right now, but after the draft, it would have been what everybody's talking about. There wouldn't have been draft coverage coming within the next couple of hours even, let alone the next few days that would kind of mask it a little bit. So I'm happy just personally as a fan that I don't have to hear Chase Young, Chase Young, Chase Young, Chase Young for the next week. The draft is the priority. Chase Young comes after that. It just so happens that this is the breaking news today, but after today, people aren't going to talk about this. I'm pretty sure even before today is over, with it being Wednesday and the draft starts Thursday, something else is going to come out that's even higher breaking news than this. So we'll see. And then, of course, he was a 2020 Pro Bowler and NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year. Him being a Pro Bowler in his rookie season does affect how much we would have to pay him in his 5th-year option. There's a whole equation to that situation, a whole way that the NFL has it set up. But it's just crazy that he looked that promising his rookie year, similar to Kayvon Thibodeau's rookie season last year, and then suddenly he just kind of fell off the face of the earth. I mean, even before he got hurt, and being hurt has affected him a lot. I mean, that's the reason he's missed so much time and things like that. And even when he came back, he didn't seem to be 100%. He's an elite run stopper, but he still has to work on a lot of pass rush stuff. Like, having a rush plan, having counters, hand technique. What were you doing the entire time you were hurt to come back and look almost just as raw in any way, technique and nuance wise than before you got hurt and you were gone for over a year? Like, what were you doing at the Von Miller camp? What were you doing the whole time you were hurt? Like I've been saying, man, whole time Chase Young was hurt, he should have been doing the little Ip Man little thing with the wooden thing, like just straight karate type of stuff, like something. I don't know what he was doing this entire time, just doing leg exercises. If anything, you need to be working on your hands more than anything else. But at the end of the day, even before he got hurt, he still wasn't good. He was having an extremely disappointing sophomore season before the injury. The injury just took him out from November on that year, and then the majority of this past season. That's it. But it wasn't like he came back balling the majority of the 2021 season anyway. But if we were to pick up his fifth-year option, it would be worth $17.4 million. Again, it's more than if he didn't make the Pro Bowl his rookie season. If you make the Pro Bowl at all, your fifth-year option and your rookie contract is increased. So sadly for us, even though he only had one good season, you can't even necessarily call it that great because it's not even like he killed it statistically with sacks and things like that. He just did everything else very well, which is noteworthy. Like I said, Chase Young is a very underrated run stopper. Him and Montez Sweat are elite run stoppers. Elite. Some of the best when it comes to setting the edge and stopping the run. But we need more out of them as far as pass rushing goes, with you being first round picks and expecting big money. The guys that get the big money get the sacks, period. But it does kind of suck for us that the only good season that he had, he made the Pro Bowl. So now that makes us have to owe him more money on his fifth-year option than if he didn't make the Pro Bowl. So it was really fun. It was all fun and games back then. We was having all kinds of fun. Chase Young Rookie of the Year Pro Bowl. And then now looking back, I wish he didn't technically make that Pro Bowl because they probably would have been more inclined to pick up his fifth-year option if he wasn't as expensive. But remember, it's not the end of the world. Quarterback Daniel Jones of the Giants, Raiders running back Josh Jacobs, and Falcons right tackle Kaleb McGary all had their fifth-year options decline last year and all went out there and balled out. And between those three guys, Daniel Jones and Kaleb McGary were able to cash in on it and get long-term contracts afterwards. And I feel like Josh Jacobs will eventually get his. So it's not the end of the world, but it's not looking too good. I mean, first of all, let's dive into the fact that we essentially put in Chase Young and Montez Sweat, who are basically best friends, against each other to fight for that one available contract, because it's definitely looking like, especially after you don't pick up Chase Young's fifth-year option, that they're fighting for one contract unless they both happen to ball out, which would, I guess, be best case scenario on the field wise. But then keeping both wise and money wise, it wouldn't be. But maybe you pay Chase Young long term and you franchise tag Montez Sweat. I don't know, man. That's not looking very likely. Somebody's going to end up hitting free agency after this 2023 season. Maybe both of them do. You never know. I mean, this could have been avoidable if you knew you weren't going to pay Chase Young long term, or at the very least pick up his fifth-year option. Maybe you could have just gone ahead and given Montez Sweat a long-term extension, and it's technically not too late. Maybe you can still do it now and buy low before he has that breakout season that we hope he has this upcoming season. Maybe you can extend him for the next 3 or 4 years for way cheaper money than you would get if he were to go out there and ball out this upcoming season. So hopefully we can get in front of that, but I doubt it. I don't think it's very possible. And again, like I mentioned earlier, at this point, this is really interesting because it's not only just Chase Young and Montez Sweat that we could potentially lose after this season, but everybody. There is not a single defensive end edge rusher on this team that's under contract beyond this 2023 season. After this 2023 regular season, and hopefully for us postseason ends, no defensive end on our team right now is a Commander. Everybody's a free agent. Everybody. The only guy that technically wouldn't be a free agent is Shaka Toney, and he's suspended indefinitely for at least a minimum of a year. And he technically only has 1 year left on his contract, but because he's suspended, that contract moves on to the next year, 2024, if he even ever plays in the NFL again, let alone for the Commanders again. So again, it looks like we're basically pinning Montez Sweat and Chase Young against each other, and it's already been reported weeks ago that NFL teams have already been monitoring this situation even before this news came out that the Commanders do not plan on picking up Chase Young's fifth-year option. So now teams are definitely going to be keeping a strong eye on this situation and probably trying to pry one of these guys away from us. I wouldn't be surprised if at any point that Montez Sweat or Chase Young brush shoulders with any other coach of any team, that they're not not, you know, whispering in their ear quickly while passing by, hey man, we'll pay you type of thing. So watch out for teams trying to take one of these guys away from us, and they probably won't even have to take one of these guys away from us. We'll probably just end up giving them away. And that's just letting them walk as an unrestricted free agent and let them test the market. Or that could be through a trade, which takes me to the next point. Will we end up just trading Chase Young before the draft? Will we sell low? Because if you trade Chase Young now, you're not going to get much for him at all. I'm thinking 5th round pick at best, honestly. But if you trade him now, he could help you now as far as trade value. But if you wait till after this season, and also, I mean, it does kind of increase his trade value, the fact that the 5th-year option is still an option. If you trade him to another team that is willing to pick up his 5th-year option, he technically has 2 years left on his contract, which definitely increases his trade value. But still, I don't think you would get more than a 5th-round pick for him. But at the end of the day, if you don't trade him before the draft, you pretty much never will, because this will be the last year of his contract if we're not picking up the 5th-year option, which again, that's reportedly happening, and it just seems like we probably won't anyway. Ron Rivera has just kept so quiet on the situation and keeping answers short. You could just tell that we were headed to this path anyway. So if he balls out, say best case scenario, he balls out this 2023 season, he's an unrestricted free agent. We can't trade him anyway. He's not even on the team. So if you're going to trade him, you have to pretty much trade him before this draft. It's the only time it really makes sense. That's the only time that he can really help you this year. But the problem is, again, you be selling low. What trade package would you be able to include Chase Young in to where he makes a significant difference? And we're trying to trade back, if anything, not trade up. So if anything, I don't really see a trade package happening where we move picks up or down. The only way that we could trade him is if we straight up just trade him for a pick or something like that. But I don't see a scenario where you can add Chase Young into a package and he helps sweeten the deal or anything like that. I don't see that at all. So if you're trading Chase Young, it would probably literally be just straight up Chase Young for a 5th round pick. And don't do that. I would prefer to just take the chance in the 2023 season. I mean, again, I prefer to pick up the 5th-year option still. Even after this report, go ahead and pick it up, in my opinion. But if you're not, I prefer to go ahead and see it through this 2023 season and just go ahead and trade an second overall pick just a couple of years ago for a 5th round pick. Come on now. And it's already been reported from, you know, NFL analysts and experts basically going through trade scenarios. This is nothing that's confirmed. This is nothing that's been put out there by the Colts themselves. But people have said that the Colts could offer a 2023 5th round pick and a conditional 2024 2nd round pick and center Ryan Kelly in exchange for Young and a 2023 6th round pick. And so far, that's the best trade scenario I've heard. And I'm still afraid of doing that. I mean, getting a 5th round pick and a 2nd round pick and Ryan Kelly for Chase Young in a 6th, that's by far the best trade package we could potentially get. And I believe that was proposed by Colts analysts or reporters. But at the same time, I'm willing to bet on Chase Young. But if you want to play it safe, you take that trade if the Colts are really giving that. You get a starting center, and that's arguably one of our weaknesses right now, with Chase Roulier struggling to stay healthy. Tyler Larson is back up, same thing. And then Nick Gates is coming off of a catastrophic injury, and he's like a guard center type of guy like Wes White, so more center than anything else, but he can play either position if you need him to as a backup. So to get a starting center, that fixes one of your problems. And then to end up getting a conditional 2024 2nd round pick, that's pretty interesting. And then there goes that 5th round pick. Like I said, that's more than I expected. So that's why I'm like, if you want to play it safe, you could do that. But still, I would decline that. I would bank on Chase Young's balling out 2023, this upcoming season. And then hopefully you can find a way to pay him. But then there are people saying that the Seahawks are in desperate need of defensive line anywhere, defensive tackle, edge rusher, whatever, and maybe they'd be willing to give up more than other teams. And plus the fact that they have 2 first-round picks, I don't think we would get any of those first-round picks from them, but they probably don't need picks as bad as most other teams. They could probably, since they have 2 first-round picks, they may be more willing to give up like a 3rd rounder for Chase Young, rather than the 5th again that I think would end up happening straight up. Then you also have the potential of like if you were to even possibly be able to procure a 1st round pick from anybody, it would be a Super Bowl contender that would value Chase Young's talent and potential more than a team that needs something right now, like say the Chiefs, for existence. They're Super Bowl contenders. Their pick is so late in the 1st, it's almost technically a 2nd. And with them being so great, they're the type of team that could take a chance on Chase Young and pay more for Chase Young than another team because they're good. Chase Young could come in and, if anything, only help them. If he doesn't reach his potential, they're still the same exact team that they were last year when they won the Super Bowl. But if he balls out, which I still think he has a chance to, I think it's still lying dormant in him. You just got to work on his technique. Then now you have arguably the best edge rusher in the NFL if he reaches his potential for potentially, technically, instead of a second overall pick, the 31st overall pick in the draft, because again, the Miami Dolphins had to forfeit their pick, which is a steal in the eyes of the Chiefs if that were to play out that way. And then you also have the Panthers, who may be desperate to just do whatever they can to build a young team up from the bottom. First overall pick, gonna take quarterback, more than likely Bryce Young. And then if you can somehow get an second overall pick that has all of the potential in the world and get it to work, I can see a scenario where an up-and-coming team like that that's technically still rebuilding to take a chance on Chase Young. It may not be a first round pick, but it may be something higher than a 5th round pick. So those are the different scenarios where we can end up getting more than a 5th rounder potentially. And now, speaking of trades, if Chase Young is not on this team, if we trade him before the draft, or even if we keep him this 2023 season, and we just in case go into this draft expecting to replace him because we don't expect him to ball out in 2023 and don't expect to keep him 2024 and beyond, does that mean that there's a high chance that we take defensive end in round 1 in this upcoming draft? And there is, man. It honestly is. Do not be surprised if we take like a Myles Murphy or a Lukas Van Ness if they slide all the way to 16. That was reported weeks ago. Even before this, we're not picking up Chase Young's 5th-year option news just came out today. That came a minute ago. And after this, the hype for that train is even louder right now. Even more plausible, more likely, more realistic. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'd still prefer to go offensive tackle in the first round and or corner. And essentially, I prefer to trade back ultimately, unless one of those elite talents at either of those positions, tackle, corner, falls down to us at 16, then maybe you don't trade back and you take one of those elite players. But I think ultimately we'll end up trading back either way. But you never know, man. They may be like, man, Myles Murphy at 16 is arguably the best player available anyway. And regardless of what Chase Young got going on, if he balls out or not, we'll just go ahead and take him. Trade or not. Before or during the draft. And there's an argument to be had that you take your edge rusher now so that they have a year to develop and learn how to play defense in Jack Del Rio's scheme, an entire season, so that when it's their time to start, they're ready. It's not you just throwing a rookie out there to replace Chase Young and or Montez Sweat. It's a guy that's already been playing under Jack Del Rio for a year in the rotation and things like that. And that would be smart, especially if we're going to address edge rusher later in the draft. That would make a lot of sense. Remember, James Smith-Williams was starting the majority of the season last year for us, and he was a 7th round pick. But because he was able to learn under Jack Del Rio's scheme for a couple of years, he was ready to step up when necessary. And he didn't play like a 5th round pick at all. He didn't play like what you hope Chase Young or Montez Sweat played like, but he was serviceable. And so the same argument could be made, and you never know. Maybe Tyree Wilson falls. Maybe Derek Hall falls. Maybe Lukas Van Ness. Maybe Adebawore from Northwestern falls. Maybe Byron Young. Maybe you try to get a Keon White in the 2nd. Maybe the Thule kid that came out of nowhere that's kind of a tweener in the 2nd as well. I mean, there's so many names. Isaiah Foskey, however you pronounce it. I mean, I watch a lot of these guys tape, but I've just never really heard a lot of their names pronounced the correct way. So excuse me for butchering people's names. I know their play style, I know their tape, I know their game, but boy, I do not exactly know their name. I ain't even mean for that to rhyme, man. I'm just too smooth with it, I guess. But the next topic I'll talk about again, what if he just balls out and gets paid? That would be lovely. There's a chance that that can happen. You never know. I mean, this would be his first entire offseason fully healthy, working with Jeff Zgonina and Ryan Kerrigan as his defensive line's coach pairing, along with probably Warren Sapp if we bring him back again, instead of Sam Mills III. And that's probably why the technique wasn't being developed. I mean, remember, our defensive line hated Sam Mills III. Matt Ioannidis literally was at a point a couple of years ago where it was like, it's either me or him. I don't know how we ended up keeping Matt Ioannidis after that and Sam Mills III, but it was so bad that Matt Ioannidis, a 5th round pick, was like, man, me or him. Like, this guy is terrible. So we can blame him somewhat for what Chase Young has not done development wise, but at the same time, it's easily, the majority of it is by far on Chase Young. But I think Jeff Zgonina and Ryan Kerrigan, with an entire healthy offseason with Chase Young, maybe Chase Young can become that guy. And plus, maybe Chase Young prefers this situation. Without the 5th-year option getting picked up, now he has a chance to cash in on a big contract sooner. he's basically just banking and betting on himself to ball out this upcoming season. It's a risk, but it's probably a risk that he prefers. And at the same time, Ron Rivera has shown that he's willing to pay guys after they have that career year. When he challenges you to go out there and earn that next contract, he has shown that he will give you that contract. And it just seems like Chase Young, if anybody between him and Montez Sweat, is that guy to be next up, just based on how Ron Rivera feels about the situation. Plus, with new ownership coming in, maybe he wants to let them come in and decide on whether or not to give another defensive lineman a big time contract. Maybe Josh Harris found a way through his people to talk to Ron Rivera's people to talk to Ron Rivera in a very third person way that, hey man, you better not give Chase Young that $17 million fifth-year option before we get in there and decide if we want to. So maybe this is a strategy to just let Josh Harris and those guys decide on the Chase Young situation, even though I hope Josh Harris and those guys do not influence things like how Dan Snyder used to, calling in picks from his yacht and things like that. That's very call in picks from your yacht-esque if Josh Harris has any control over this Chase Young situation, especially already. I would understand if he was already here for a while and he gained that type of rapport and earned that type of trust, but just coming in, walking in and controlling this Chase Young situation, I doubt it, but you never know. It's funny to think about. But again, Terry McLaurin got his money, Daron Payne has gotten his money, Jonathan Allen has gotten their big time money. The interesting thing though is that out of all of those names, Chase Young is the only one that Ron Rivera has drafted, so it's definitely not a biased or ego driven approach by our head coach, because if he was ego driven like some people, like a lot of people, it would be like Chase Young's gotta get it because this is my first draft pick ever of being a Commanders head coach, so I gotta make this work. I gotta make it look like I'm a genius. But Ron Rivera's not doing that, and I respect that, but I still prefer for him to pick up the fifth-year option. But at least we know ego is not part of it. And this situation is also a little different because they did pick up Daron Payne's fifth-year option, but in that fifth year is when he balled out. Whereas Chase Young, they're like, we're not going to give you the fifth-year option. You better ball out in this fourth. Daron Payne, they waited till the fifth. They gave him all the way to the fifth to do it. Chase Young, they're like, nah. So there's similarities, but there's also big differences as well. But this is scary because if Chase Young balls out, which of course on the field we hope he does, at the end of the season, that's going to be another Payne contract. How are we going to afford all of these guys? I mean, I'm not even sure if we can pay Chase Young or Montez Sweat, let alone both of them. I think it's quite likely that we end up keeping neither. It's really tight with the money. Now, luckily, we potentially have a franchise quarterback in Sam Howell who's on a rookie deal. If he were getting anywhere near the money that Jalen Hurts, Daniel Jones, or Dak Prescott were getting, this wouldn't even be a conversation. We'd probably end up losing both of those guys. Not even picking one of them, losing both of them. Maybe you franchise tag one, but I don't think we would even have the money to pay either of these guys long term. But because we have Sam Howell on a rookie deal, if he can be our franchise quarterback on that rookie deal with 3 years left, that gives us a better opportunity of potentially paying one, maybe both of these guys. You probably pay one and franchise tag the other. We'll see. And this is just clearly Ron Rivera. He's shown throughout his entire coaching history that he believes in competition and inspiring guys to play their best. This is a risky way to do it, but this is just the Ron Rivera way, and we just have to accept that. He's going to challenge guys to go out there and ball out and show him something, to earn something, and usually it's playing time, usually a spot on the team, and in certain cases like these, it's to earn that next big contract, like how he challenged Daron Payne and now Chase Young and kind of Montez Sweat. Now again, I'm going to keep saying it. Even today, while recording this video, I still hope news comes out before, during, or shortly after the draft, before May 2nd, that we ended up picking up the fifth-year option, but I doubt it. But also, you got to remember, the part that scares me the most, and I foreshadowed this in the intro, we still got to worry about not only Chase Young and Montez Sweat this upcoming offseason, and our entire defensive end edge rusher group, like literally the entire thing, all of them. But you got to remember, Cam Curl is a free agent. Now, I did hear rumors and reports that we're trying to go ahead and give Cameron Curl his money this offseason after the draft, after new ownership comes in. So hopefully that happens. But either way, Cameron Curl is an unrestricted free agent after this season. So is Curtis Samuel. So is Kendall Fuller. So is technically Cody Barton, Jacoby Brissett, of course, but I'm pretty sure he's only going to be here for a year no matter what happens, no matter how poorly he plays, how well he plays. If he never plays because Sam Howell balls out, doesn't matter. Then you have Cornelius Lucas, you have Jeremy Reaves, technically, you have Khalid Hudson, who we hope steps up at linebacker. David Mayo is always just going to sign one-year contracts over and over again. But also your franchise kicker, Joey Sly. Don't forget Antonio Gibson, who I'm hoping balls out under Eric Bieniemy. He's going to try to get a big check. And then you have so many random guys up and down this team, and it just gets really ugly, man. So it's not just Chase Young versus Montez Sweat. It's Chase Young versus Montez Sweat versus Cameron Curl, as far as we know right now, versus Curtis Samuel versus Kendall Fuller versus Cody Barton if he balls out the way that we hope. I mean, again, we're hoping these guys ball out on the field because that gives us our best chance to win in 2023. But at the same time, if these guys ball out, I mean, Curtis Samuel, if he just does anything better than what he could do under Scott Thunder under Eric Bieniemy, which I'm assuming will happen, these guys are going to be due for some serious contracts. Cornelius Lucas is a backup, but still, Jeremy Reaves is our special teams ace, our only all-pro player last year. And then again, Antonio Gibson, Joey Sly, your franchise kicker. This can get really messy in the 2024 offseason, but for now, I just want to focus on the fun of the draft and just put this 2024 offseason in the back of my mind, because it's going to be a lingering problem for us for a while. But you just gotta ignore the noise for now, enjoy the ride of the 2023 draft, the 2023 regular season, and then we'll worry about that level of stress in the 2024 offseason. It's a real problem. I'm not gonna lie to y'all, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. This 2024 offseason, we're probably gonna lose some really important players, but we'll see how it happens. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section, let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Please leave a like on this video if you liked it, if you learned anything. And as always, man, I appreciate all the support, man. Shouts out to all of my sponsors, especially my Pro Bowl sponsors, whose names you scrolling on the screen right now. Let me know how you feel about this entire Chase Young situation. I hope I hit every angle possible on this, but I probably missed a couple. So let me know how you feel about the situation, anything I didn't bring up in the video. Let me know if you agree or disagree with any of my points, and I'm gonna catch y'all later. I'm out.